My job is simple. It's the whole idea is not to get in your way, so that we go to the business of the day. It's my pleasure to welcome all of you today, distinguished CEOs and partners, managing directors, regulatory bodies and associations, members of the press, of course, ladies and gentlemen.
In terms of technology, AI has a big space in cyber resilience because it allows you to simulate the attacks of the cyber adversaries in much more diverse and consistent ways, okay? And so AI is beginning to be a thing. As we can see in many other fields, the key thing with AI, of course, is it depends on how you train. You know, when you start talking about AI and machine learning, you need some kind of training. So you need to train the systems to be able to pick up the right kind of trends. Sometimes you have what we call false positives, okay? And then that's where you need human intervention or a more sophisticated machine to be able to say, no, this is not actually an attack. But it helps you to be able to keep track of what is going on. You know, I think the challenge for most businesses today is it's not like those days when you could just shut all your doors and shut all your windows. We don't have a border anymore, you know, in terms of our systems. We have cloud-based systems, on-prem, but most people are moving to cloud, especially when you're talking about payments and you're talking about fintechs. The thing to do if you're starting a new business today is not to start to acquire on-prem. You just go to the cloud. But even in the cloud, you have to ensure that you're selecting the right cloud services provider and that you yourself are clear on the small print that has to do with it, because we talk about delegating and abdicating. You can delegate some of your security responsibilities, but you cannot abdicate. And you should also have a right to audit clause in your agreements to make sure that from time to time, you know, you're also auditing them and you are sure that they themselves are compliant to global best practice standards, you know. So
the trend of digital acceleration is not slowing down. You know, it's not something that we see in the near future going to slow down, and there's no signs of that. In Central Europe, Middle East, and Africa, we see how visas payment volume has been growing steadily. Post the global pandemic that happened third quarter of 2020. Within this period, we've seen how there's been an increased adoption of seamless payments and secure payment in that space. In 2022, we see that contactless payments grew by 82% in CEMEA, and the technology and the security around this tokenization also averaged by 25%. So basically, we see that these are new innovations, these are things that are coming up, and there's no chance of it slowing down. The adoption rate is increasing, and Visa is very much invested in investing in technology in this space to support partners in the ecosystem.
I think I'll first like to highlight that at Flutterwave, one of the things that we actually like to do is, stay aware of different policies, also be aware of monetary and macroeconomic trends, and also create not just innovative strategic financial solutions, but also create products and solutions that are actually sustainable, right? What this means is that it won't just be able to weather the storm when there's a policy change or trend that impacts our customers, but also is going to be able to address different verticals and individuals across board, right? One of the things that we did at Flutterwave was to ensure that we had POS terminals available that actually met with the surge in demand that came from our customers that actually had physical locations, high-end restaurants and companies that required a point-of-sale terminal to be able to accept payments, because like we all know, cash was literally nowhere to be seen. Even I myself actually suffered it at some point. I couldn't get anything from the ATM. I couldn't even, I had to leverage on my card to do some form of point-of-sale transaction. So, yeah.
At Raven, a digital bank, we have 520,000 customers and 4,000 businesses. So on a lot of occasions, especially in the middle of the night, we have what we call a Ragnar strike. That's actually an internal tool that regulates fraud. So the Ragnar strikes keep going off in the middle of the night, telling you that there is irregular transaction on a particular account. And then when you take a closer look, because I usually get a notification on my phone, so you go and take a look at the transaction, you now realize that a business or a customer or even another fintech is being attacked, or maybe their account is being compromised, and the monies are coming into your position. And what those people do is, when they come to your position, they move it out to somewhere else. So fintech helping businesses means that you have to put some of these measures in place to identify transactions that are fraudulent. We've done it several times. A couple of businesses come to us crying that some of the money moved to our position, and when we check, the monies are still there, because we actually have fraud control that monitor the kind of transaction that are coming to our position. So for me, I feel like that goes a long way to help SMEs to ensure that, okay, by any means, if your account is compromised, at least there is safety that you can still grab that money back. That's number one. Then number two is, I think also fintech need to do more in terms of security systems that they put in place while building their platforms. So several times, even on a lot of occasions, we've engaged with regulators. Since we are stakeholders, we give our own feedback on what we think is the right way to build security systems in the industry. I think why I'm coming a lot from this angle is because I'm a software engineer with 10 years of experience. So we tell them that, oh, the OTP is not secure enough. That OTP in biometric, in BVN verification is not secure enough. I mean, I've seen it before where someone that stole someone's BVN had access to the person's phone number as well, and they received the OTP and used it to compromise someone's account. So on our platform, we don't do anything OTP, we do only biometric verification. So for me, I feel like generally, fintechs should update their insights around how fraudsters are behaving, and also, just like you said, being proactive to put measures in place to ensure that businesses and even ordinary customers are protected. I mean, you don't want people to lose their money before you have to close up loopholes that could be in the system. So I think that's one of the ways fintech can actually help SMEs in terms of protection against fraud.
Yes, so basically you want to look at the transaction information that is being captured while you try to make any of these transactions, right? Unlike the conventional means of making payments today, you typically maybe go to a business location and you want to pay with your cash, right? Maybe no information is captured, right, when you go and make payments with your cash. But if you are actually subscribing to a mobile money or a mobile payment channel or a platform, right, for you to be on that platform or for you to be on that channel, right, there's some level of information that's been taken from you as an individual, right? So typically your name, your address, your phone number, and a host of others. And different platforms will typically tier this, right? So you have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and that will limit the type of transactions you can do, depending on the tier that you are. Some would even ask for your BVN, right? If you want to get to like the maximum tier, a whole lot of them typically ask for your BVN. So by doing this, you have transaction information, and if you have transaction information, it deters fraud to a reasonable extent, right? When you have information of the customer, right, or if somebody has come to do a particular transaction, and maybe later that transaction comes back as fraudulent, or there are escalations on those type of transactions, you know where to point to, because you've captured details of the customer or the individual at the point of payment, right? So I think transaction information is what we should look at, right, when it comes to reducing fraud as well as transparency in the mobile money space.
I'm going to commend regulators at the same time caution. So I will commend them with the fact that there is more effort to collaborate, and I will also caution the fact that there needs to be more roundtable discussions. There needs to be more done in the sense of involving and inviting the players to talk. What exactly are you trying to achieve as a fintech company? What exactly are you trying to achieve as a startup before you create policies and regulations that guide this place? So that's it. It's more about collaborations and innovative policies rather than the startups or the players catching up to these policies and realizing that they don't necessarily fit the image of what they're trying to achieve.
As Fintech NGR is basically the spearhead association of fintechs in Nigeria. We have about 400 members, and we exist for 3 reasons. Yeah, to accelerate the development of fintechs, to connect fintechs together because it's a large ecosystem, and some people may not be as strong as others. Some people may need advice, but most importantly is to advocate for fintechs. And we've seen improvements in that advocacy role, that the regulator will come to us and our members when they're bringing forward policies and bringing up policies. But the issue of security, fraud, consumer protection are huge issues. Now, if you look at it, if you're a fintech, you're in your room or you're in a small company, let's be honest, compliance and regulation is not your priority. You just thought of this great idea, you want to run, and then you're running fast ahead and somebody saying brakes. But somebody said today in a different place I was there, the reason why cars go very fast is because they actually have good brakes. Just imagine you're driving a car with no brakes. How will you go? You be cautious. Once you know you have really good brakes, you go fast. So regulation of the brakes, but it just has to be balanced to make it effective and to make our fintech environments grow.
Smuggled into Nigeria, stolen vehicles. And as we speak, our car dumps is littered with so much. Traced to Nigeria from Canada and US especially. So the law, the Poker Act has strengthened that aspect you asked about. We can approach the court that we've been able to establish a nexus between the crime and this property, and it should be forfeited.
So these guys that send all these dodgy texts that people click on and then there's a malware on their phone, they have a phone number. Who's blocking that phone number? Yeah, it's not rocket science. Banks catch, somebody reads a bank digitally, and my brother here knows the formula. They pick one account, send it to 16, from 16, goes on and on and on. Yeah, without saying too much. We don't have sufficient enforcement people to catch these people fast. Time is of essence. So I guess my closing comments from a regulatory perspective is we have to take the tangible low-hanging regulatory protection, both for the consumers and indeed for the providers, to catch these criminals early and prosecute them ethically as well. And thank you.